At 30,000 feet in the air, a businessman lost his temper and poured hot coffee on a little black girl sitting quietly by the window. The cabin froze, passengers gasped, and no one could believe what they'd just seen. But what that man didn't know was who was waiting for her at the airport: her father, the head of aviation safety. And when he stepped in, justice didn't just land, it roared. If you're part of the Black Visionaries family, hit that like button right now and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories like this one. The air inside Flight 247 was calm, filled with the low hum of engines and the faint chatter of passengers. The bright morning light streamed through the oval windows, painting warm streaks across the cabin. A little girl, about 9 years old, sat quietly by the window in seat 17A. Her name was Amara Collins, and it was her first time flying alone. She wore a pink hoodie and clutched her teddy bear tightly. The flight attendant had just helped her buckle in, reminding her with a gentle smile, "Your dad will be waiting at the airport when you land, sweetheart." Amara nodded. She was brave, just a little nervous. 2 rows behind her sat a man in a crisp suit with a coffee cup in hand, scrolling on his phone. His name was Richard Hale, a corporate executive on his way to a meeting in Washington. But to everyone on that flight, he'd soon become infamous. When turbulence struck mid-air, the plane shook lightly. A few gasps echoed, but nothing unusual, until Richard's hot coffee spilled slightly on his tray. He cursed under his breath, and when the attendant apologized and offered to replace it, his frustration turned ugly. He grumbled, "This is ridiculous. First, they seat me near that kid, and now this mess." The attendant frowned. "Sir, please keep your voice down." But Richard wasn't done. As he stood to grab his bag from the overhead bin, his elbow bumped the seat in front, Amara's seat, and her apple juice splashed onto his sleeve. He turned, eyes burning. "Are you kidding me?" I'm sorry," Amara stuttered. "Sorry doesn't clean my shirt," he snapped. And before anyone could react, he tipped his half-full coffee cup straight onto the little girl's tray, splashing hot liquid across her hoodie and teddy bear. The cabin went silent. Amara gasped, tears welling in her eyes, clutching the soaked bear. The passengers froze. One woman shouted, "What is wrong with you?" "She's a child." The flight attendants rushed over, pulling Richard back. "Sir, that's assault," one of them cried. He scoffed. "It was an accident. She should watch where she's sitting." The captain was alerted immediately, but what Richard didn't know was who was waiting on the ground. The moment Flight 247 touched down, word had already reached the control tower. The captain reported a passenger incident involving a minor. Standing in the arrival terminal was Captain Marcus Collins, head of aviation safety for the Federal Air Authority, and Amara's father. Marcus was a tall, composed man with years of flight experience. He had seen emergencies, accidents, and human errors. But nothing prepared him for the sight of his daughter stepping off the plane with red eyes, holding a soaked teddy bear and wearing a hoodie stained with coffee. He knelt beside her immediately. "Amara? What happened?" She tried to speak but broke down. "He tore it on me, Daddy." Marcus's jaw tightened. He didn't yell. He didn't make a scene. But his silence carried a storm. He turned to the crew, his voice low and steady. "Where is he?" Richard Hale stood at the gate, still arguing with a flight attendant. "It was a misunderstanding," he said, waving his arms. "The brat spilled juice on me first. I have a meeting to get to." Marcus approached slowly, his identification badge glinting in the light. "Sir," Marcus said calmly, "you poured hot coffee on a child mid-flight. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime." Richard rolled his eyes. "Look, I didn't know she was your kid, all right? It was—" Marcus cut him off, his tone firm. "It doesn't matter whose kid she is. You don't treat anyone like that, especially not a child under federal protection during air travel." The airport security stepped in, guided by Marcus's quiet authority. Within minutes, Richard found himself surrounded. "Sir, please hand over your ID," one officer said. "What for?" he barked. Marcus replied softly, "For investigation and federal review. I'm authorizing it under the passenger safety clause." Richard laughed bitterly. You can't do that.
Marcus leaned closer, his eyes unwavering. I can. And I just did. Back in the terminal office, Marcus watched the security footage from inside the plane. The video was clear. Richard's deliberate motion, Amara's reaction, and the shocked faces around them.
Marcus's voice trembled with control as he said, "This footage will go straight to the FA and the Department of Aviation Conduct." One of the officers asked, "Do you want to press personal charges?" Marcus shook his head. "No, I want policy enforcement. No one like him should ever be allowed near a passenger again." Meanwhile, Amara sat quietly in the waiting area, sipping juice, still shaken. Her father walked over, kneeling beside her again. "You know, brave girls like you teach even grown men lessons they'll never forget." She looked up at him. "Did I do something wrong, Daddy?" He smiled gently. "No, baby. Sometimes people show their ugliness when they think no one's watching, but I always am." By evening, the incident made national headlines. Businessman assaults child on plane. Turns out she's the head of aviation safety's daughter. The public outrage was immediate. Videos from passengers went viral. Richard's company terminated him within hours, releasing a public apology. But Marcus didn't celebrate. Instead, he used the moment to spark something bigger. The next morning, at a press conference, he stood before cameras with Amara by his side. "This isn't about my daughter," he said firmly. "This is about how we treat people when we think we can get away with it. Air travel isn't just about planes, it's about respect. No passenger deserves humiliation, no matter their color, age, or seat number." The crowd went silent. The video clip of that statement spread across social media. Tag SkyRespect. Amara's photo, smiling again, holding her now clean teddy bear, became a symbol of courage. Flight attendants, pilots, and passengers all around the world shared her story, calling for better training and stricter passenger behavior rules. And as for Richard Hale, his name became a reminder of what happens when arrogance meets accountability. A week later, Marcus and Amara sat on a quiet beach near their home, watching planes cross the sky. Amara leaned on her dad's shoulder. "Will I ever be scared to fly again?" she asked softly. He smiled. "You. Never. Because every time a plane takes off, I know someone like you gives it reason to land safely." The waves crashed gently nearby. The sun dipped lower, painting the horizon gold. Marcus looked out at the sky and whispered, "Sometimes justice doesn't roar. It lands smoothly, right where it's supposed to." And for the first time since that flight, Amara smiled without fear. Sometimes karma doesn't wait for the landing, it boards the same flight. If this story moved you, hit subscribe and join the Black Visionaries family for more powerful stories that'll stay with you long after they end.